විම් දියර මිලිලීටර් 100 ස්මාර්ට් පැක් එක රුපියල් 85ට දැන් වෙළඳ පොලේ.
හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Wednesday the 8th of March 2023. New dates. Election Commission announces that the postal vote for the local government election will take place on the last week of March. Debtor interest. Exim Bank expresses willingness to expedite negotiations with Sri Lankan authorities regarding the medium and long-term debt treatment. Two sides, same coin. Opposition MP Harsha De Silva says that the country's way forward cannot be driven only on exports, but require imports as well.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරම.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Andrew Bernard. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. Your top story for tonight, the chairman of the Election Commission, Nimalji Punchiheva, states that the postal vote of the 2023 local government election will be held from the 28th to the 31st of March this year. Meanwhile, the government press has handed over a written request to the Treasury seeking the release of funds to finance the printing operations required to conduct the 2023 local government polls. The Election Commission yesterday declared the 25th of April to be the most suitable date for the 2023 local government election. Subsequently, the chairman of the Election Commission, Nimalji Punchiheva, stated that the postal vote of the local government election will be held on the 28th, 29th, 30th and 31st of March 2023. Accordingly, the secured packages containing the ballot papers required for postal voting will be handed over to the Department of Postal Services on the 21st of March. Meanwhile, acting on the instructions of the Election Commission, the government press handed over a written request to the Treasury requesting the provision of funds to commence the printing of ballot papers. Through the letter, the government press informed the Treasury that an estimated sum of 300 million rupees will be required to finance future printing operations pertaining to the election. The government press further pointed out that so far 150 million rupees have been incurred as expenses for all election-related printing activities. The government press also handed over a letter to the Inspector General of Police requesting the deployment of police officers for security during the printing operations. As such, the department requested 35 police officers during the day and 25 officers during the night for this purpose. Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe said today that Sri Lanka has been able to maneuver through the country's economic crisis and not crumble due to the leadership and efforts of three influential women around the world. Speaking at the National Women's Day celebrations today in Colombo, the head of state appreciated the efforts of the Indian Finance Minister, the US Treasury Secretary and the head of the International Monetary Fund and expressed his gratitude towards the bold and timely steps taken by them to aid Sri Lanka at its time of need. The National Women's Day celebrations took place today under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The event themed She, Pride of the Nation was held at the Water's Edge in Colombo. During the event, the National Women's Empowerment Charter was presented to the President, while also 25 breast entrepreneurs identified at a district level was recognized at the event.
There have been major changes that have taken place between the 2022 and the 2023 Women's Day. The main reason is that our country collapsed. There is a debate in the country at the moment on who should be blamed for this. I will not mention names here, but I would like to say one thing. When I look at all these names, there isn't one woman's name among them. So women are not to be blamed for the current situation in the country. During this time, if we look at the people who took steps to save the country, the names of three women stand out. The first one on the list is Nirmala Sitharaman. She is the Minister of Finance in India. She spoke with the Prime Minister and the Cabinet and decided to give Sri Lanka $3 billion in April. Giving loans is a very brave act. When we went to speak with some of the main economies, the main country was America. Taking the leadership in this situation was the head of the US Treasury, Janet Yellen. It was the head of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, who took up the leadership and a personal approach during our discussions with the Paris Club and the World Bank. If it wasn't for these three women, we would be in a lot of trouble.
මේ කාන්තාවන් තුන්දෙනා හිටපු නැත්නම් ඉතින් අපිත් හුඟක් අමාරුවේ ඉන්නේ.
Now, the international media reported today that the Export and Import Bank of China has informed Sri Lankan authorities on how they would like to expedite the negotiation process with their Sri Lankan counterparts regarding the medium and long-term debt treatment. The bank noted that they hope to have this discussion for the 2-year period where Sri Lanka would not be required to pay the principal and interest rates. The Exim Bank further stated that they will make their best efforts to contribute to the debt sustainability of Sri Lanka. Reuters reported that the Export-Import Bank of China has told Sri Lankan authorities that it will try to finalize in the months ahead how it treats debt owed by this crisis-hit nation. The International Monetary Fund said yesterday that Sri Lanka had secured financing assurances from China, India and all its major bilateral creditors, set in the stage for final approval of the IMF's $2.9 billion 4-year bailout for the island nation on the 20th of March. In the letter written to Sri Lanka, the Exim Bank stated that China has extended its firm support to Sri Lanka through a debt treatment. The Exim Bank's vice president said in a letter that the island nation would not have to immediately repay the principal and interest due on its loans for the 2 years, so as to help relieve the short-term debt repayment pressure of Sri Lanka. The Chinese bank further added that they would like to expedite the negotiation process with the Sri Lankan side regarding medium and long-term debt treatment in this window period, with a view of finalizing the specifics of a debt treatment in the coming months. They further stated that they will take their best efforts to contribute to the debt sustainability of Sri Lanka. The letter added that China would call on commercial creditors to provide debt treatment in an equally comparable manner and encourage multilateral creditors to do their utmost to make contributions to help them better respond to the crisis and emerge from it. Reuters reported that a Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson confirmed the contents of the letter. Now, the Minister of Power and Energy, Kanchana Vijayasekara, stated that the National Fuel Pass will be topped up at midnight every Tuesday, effective from today. Taking to Twitter, the Minister of Power and Energy, Kanchana Vijayasekara, stated that the National Fuel Pass QR quota will be topped up at midnight every Tuesday, with effect from today, changing the previous weekly top-up at midnight every Sunday. The lawmaker further stated that all accounts have been topped up this morning, and that the decision was made to reduce the cost of distribution attributed to operate the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and the Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminal Limited on weekends. Furthermore, the minister stated that the weekly fuel quota currently provided will remain unchanged. Now, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the resolution tabled by the President to establish the Finance Sector Crisis Management Committee. Issuing a communique on the most recent decisions taken by the Cabinet of Ministers, the Department of Government Information also reported that the Cabinet considered the facts presented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs pertaining to the review of the 6th periodical report of Sri Lanka under the ICCPR currently taking place in Geneva. The Department of Government Information issued a communique yesterday outlining the most recent Cabinet decisions. The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal presented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs to call for expressions of intent for the reconstitution of the National Oceanic Affairs Committee. The decision was taken with the view of identifying the outer limits of Sri Lanka's continental shelf. The Cabinet of Ministers also approved the resolution submitted by the Minister of Labour and Foreign Employment, instructing the legal draftsman to draft a statute amending the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health Act. The decision was taken with the view of modernizing the existing statute to better suit present conditions. The National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health Act No. 38 of 2009 was instituted with the objective of establishing an institute on national occupational safety and health for the purpose of declaring a national policy for the preparation and standards for occupational safety and health. Meanwhile, the Cabinet of Ministers also approved the resolution tabled by the President to establish the Finance Sector Crisis Management Committee as well as the Finance Sector Crisis Management Technical Committee. Furthermore, in light of the review of the 6th periodical review of Sri Lanka under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Cabinet of Ministers took into consideration the facts presented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs regarding the steps taken by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the review. The MP of the Samagi Janabalawege, Harsha De Silva, says that despite Sri Lanka's status quo of an open economy, The country stands to be one of the most closed economies in the world, pointing out that restricting imports and increasing exports is not the best solution for the country in the long term.
In the last about 30 years or so, Sri Lanka has actually become a much closed economy than what it was. After Mr. Premadas's apparel factories program that had the momentum going up to about 1999, Sri Lanka's openness index was around 80, went up from about 40 before first liberalization in 1977. How you measure openness, Mr. Chairman, is you add the imports and exports and divide it by gross national product. So that gives you an index number. So it needs to get higher and higher if you are more open. But what has happened since around 1999 is that this index from 80, actually 89, has fallen again to around 40. So as a measure, without any political prejudice, if you look at how open this country is, actually it is one of the closest countries in the world currently, because it is back to about 40. So you need to import and export, because that is the way that this country's long-term growth is going to, that it is going to depend upon how open we become. We have to open our minds, we have to open our borders, we have to break down the walls, build bridges, because otherwise we are never going to be able to get out of this balance of payments crisis. I heard Honorable Pathali Champika saying a little while ago that it is because imports have basically shrunk, and therefore that is the reason why there is a surplus in the trade account. He is absolutely right. And actually what is happening is by forcing imports to be restricted by way of regulations, and also particularly by increasing interest rates so that you crush demand. What has happened is the economy has shrunk, and it is continuing to shrink. And in a shrinking economy, companies are closing down, jobs are being lost, and unemployment is increasing. And if you can take a little optimism that things have gotten a little better, and I'm not denying the fact things have gotten a little better, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this is a solution for the medium to long term. In order to create jobs in this country, Mr. Chairman, in order to increase exports, we also have to be able to open our imports. So closing imports and opening exports is not a realistic solution, because they're both the same coin, just two sides.
And the chairman of the Derana Media Network today highlighted several key contributions women can make in Sri Lanka given the current crisis, while also stating that women in Sri Lanka are not involved in entrepreneurship due to several misconceptions. He made these remarks at a Women's Day celebration held in Colombo today.
Women of Sri Lanka have a very special opportunity to display their entrepreneurship and get involved in a very active manner to contribute Sri Lanka's progress. However, due to cultural reasons and sometimes the wrong interpretations of this very concept of entrepreneurship, that many women have not sort of taken that role actively in the society. Entrepreneurship is, of course, a latent talent. The moment you know that you have the talent, especially ladies, should immediately do something about it. Why I say that you are again has a very special advantage of you being women in the world of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a feeling, and entrepreneurship is not an action. Entrepreneurship is where you feel that you are willing to take a risk towards the betterment of yourself or the society or a business or anything. However, it is my observation and belief that women of Sri Lanka, if they get into this entrepreneurship, they are unstoppable. So I myself always say, I believe it is nothing but the power of networking. I don't hear that from many of the marketing gurus. I know women can do this better. They have the power to engage, power to network, especially Sri Lankan people. Probably there should be a dialogue and a discussion in getting women entrepreneurship more active in this country. We have the capacity to get them involved. As being a civilization with a lot of Buddhist influence, we have such a liberal ideologies in this country across. So we must use that liberalism, and women should come forward and get more involved in commercial entrepreneurships, even the social entrepreneurships we should encourage. And it is our duty to push that and be part of it. As it has been mentioned that country is going through a bit of a difficult time in terms of managing our economy. And politically also we see there's some turbulence. And you women can make a major contribution in two ways. One is, it is a matter for our women only who can manage this issue. Because starting from cost of living to lifestyle to everything is in your hands. Second thing I want to say, and this country needs a big change. Your political literacy plays a massive role in this game. You ladies, on this Women's Day, don't leave politics only for men.
Welcome back. Now, the all-share price index edged up as a result of price gains in counters such as Hatton National Bank, Dialog Axiata, Diesel and Motor Engineering, with the turnover crossing 3.2 billion rupees. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 closed in red today. High net worth and institutional investor participation was noted in Haley's, Hatton National Bank and Expo Lanka Holdings. Mixed interest was observed in John Keel's Holdings, Capital Alliance and Sampath Bank, while retail interest was noted in Brown's Investment, LOLC, Finance and Sierra Cables. Foreign participation in the market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net buyers. Capital goods sector in the meantime was the top contributor to the market turnover as the sector index edged down by 0.09%. The banking sector was the second highest contributor to the market turnover, while the sector index increased by 0.33%. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. Now, oil prices steady today earlier on losses made today as fears of aggressive US interest rate hikes would hit demand, while the market awaited more further clarity on inventory. Meanwhile, a stronger dollar prevented oil prices from further, as US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's comments have driven the US dollar to hit a 3-month high against a basket of currencies. Brent crude futures climbed 0.1% at $83.40 a barrel at 11 a.m. GMT. US West Texas Intermediate crude futures were down by 0.1% at $77.49 a barrel. Barclays lowered its 2023 Brent forecast by $6.92 a barrel and West Texas Intermediate by $7.87. According to sources, gasoline inventories rose by about 1.8 million barrels, while distillate stocks rose by around 1.9 billion barrels. And that's all the news we have for you this evening. Join us again tomorrow for the very latest news at the very same time. Have a pleasant evening and good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.